High, but I want to tell you something about marijuana and prohibition, and something that fits in with what's going on in the news these days. You may have turned on the television, seen a lot of symbols of hate, a lot of hate going on in this world, a lot of people marching, and I can't believe this, marching under Nazi flags in America. Now, I'm sorry, my grandpa fought in World War II against Nazis, and I'm not going to stand for anything like that hatred to spread throughout America. But I want to tell you that marijuana prohibition is part of that hatred. Marijuana prohibition is, in its genesis and its continuation, white privilege. It's about racial control. It's about controlling people who think different than the status quo. It began in the early 30s when they demonized Mexicans who were smoking their loco weed, the marijuana. When everyone knew it was cannabis, everyone knew it was hemp, but if they used the word marijuana, they could fool people who had hate in their hearts to ban the plant that our founding fathers grew. It continued through Harry J. Anslinger, the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, had the job. He was the first drug czar in our nation's history from 1930 to 1962. For almost a third of the century, this racist, hateful bigot set our drug policy in America, and he set it for a very specific purpose. Harry J. Anslinger was fond of saying things like, reefer makes the darkies think they're as good as white men. I wish I could show you what one marijuana cigarette does to one of our degenerate Spanish-speaking persons. Most of the people that use marijuana are low mentally and socially because of racial conditions. It was about racism, it was founded on racism, was used as a means of controlling people. And that did not stop as time went on. As we get into the late 60s, we get a guy named Richard Milhouse Nixon. Heard of this guy? President Nixon, guy who started our modern day drug war. Well, there's a quote from one of his advisors, his domestic social policy advisor, a guy by the name of Ehrlichman. And they asked, this reporter was asking Ehrlichman about the drug war and how the drug war got started and why'd you do the drug war? And Ehrlichman said, well, I'll tell you what it was all about. In 1968, the Nixon White House had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. And we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be against the war or be black. So we knew if we made the heroin and the marijuana illegal and associated them with the blacks and the hippies, we could infiltrate their groups, we could knock down their meetings, we could tear down their movements, and we could vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. They knew it was all about controlling people who thought different, controlling people who looked different, controlling people like you and controlling people like me. And finally, we struck back. We struck back in the 70s in Oregon when we decriminalized marijuana. We said, oh, please, at least don't throw us in jail. Give us a ticket, please. And we moved on in the 90s when California passed the Compassionate Use Act and made it legal of, oh please, I'm dying from cancer, don't put me in a cage, I have cancer. And we finally evolved to the very first tiptoes into true freedom, into true legalization, where any citizen, 21 and older, can use, possess, and it should be in Washington State, grow their own cannabis. Now personally, I think the age ought to be 18. I think if you're old enough to carry a rifle in the sand, you're old enough to put a joint in your hand. If you're old enough to vote for the man, you're old enough for a joint in your hand. Are you with me on that? And we'll get there. We'll get there eventually, but we gotta get what we can get and not throw a fit. We gotta do what we can to take down the man every chance we get. And I'll tell you the one thing they don't want you to do, and it's not smoke weed. They know you're smoking weed. It's like, hey, we gotta legalize weed so you can get high. MF, I've been getting high since 1990. I don't need any law to tell me whether I'm gonna get high. You can't tell me what to do. I'm American, I'm a free person. I'm gonna do with my body what I choose to do with my body. I'm gonna do with my mind what I choose to do with my mind. I don't need no law to tell me that. However, I would rather not be in a cage. That'd be nice. Just don't put me in a cage. Don't take my stuff. Don't shoot my dog. Don't break up my family. I just want to be treated like a beer drinker, really. Like, I can't understand how in this country we can have beer fest, brew fest, bring your kids, we'll put a wristband on you, sign a waiver, come on, drink, drink, drink. And I like getting my drink on. But if we've accepted and legalized the two most harmful drugs there are, alcohol and tobacco, I don't see why it should be any mind of the business, the government, whether or not we're smoking the least harmful drug of all. Are you with me on that? The least harmful. So remember that decriminalization, that medical marijuana, and that legalization only happened not because they thought it would be cool, not because they're sitting in Olympia thinking, you know, we ought to let people smoke weed. Not because they were sitting in Salem, Oregon and said, you know, we ought to let people smoke weed. It's because she said, let people smoke weed. And he said, let people smoke weed. And you said, let people smoke weed. And we all said, let people smoke weed. And enough of us signed petitions, and enough of us voted, and we passed these laws. I love it when I talk to cynical millennials and they say, man, I don't vote, man. Voting doesn't change anything. I said, let me light up my legal joint. You tell me how voting don't change nothing. Let me go over to the pot shop and buy me some legal weed. And you tell me how voting don't change nothing. Voting is what got us legalization. Voting is what got us civil rights in this country. For oppressed people, for black people, for LGBT people, for all the marginalized people, for women, for the disabled. And we're not going backwards. I know there's some racists, there's some bigots, there's some hateful people that want to take us backwards. I ain't going back. Are you going back? We ain't going back. We're standing for freedom. We're the cannabis community. We are good people. You're good people. I'm good people. I'm Radical Russ. Thank you so much.
Make some noise for him.